The Australian marketplace for travel insurance is one that cannot be ignored. It has been growing rapidly since COVID, and it doesn't show any signs of stopping. So in this episode of Battleface Insights, we're going to dive into our data at Battleface, and we're going to look at the buying behavior and see what type of insights we can glean and use going forward. I'm Clay Coomer, host of Battleface Insights. This is episode 3. Welcome, one and all, to episode 3 of Battleface Insights. I am your host, and for today, Aussie wannabe, Clay Coomer. And today we're going to be getting into travel insurance buying behavior insights specific to the country of Australia. So just to tee this up a little bit, we entered the Australia market, I want to say beginning of 2023. So been in the market for almost 2 years, and it is probably our fastest growing market. The travel insurance market in Australia is, I'd say, very strong, and going to get into some specifics about just that now on Battleface Insights. So some quick facts. Number 1, the Australian market for travel insurance is estimated to be nearly $2 billion in Australian dollars. By comparison, the U.S. market is about estimated to be $5 billion in USD. So just comparing that little stat, which I'll get into here, and the next and quick fact number 3. But first, quick fact number 2 for our U.S. listeners: the population of Australia is, by comparison, the size of Texas. So when you think about that, it ends up being around 25 million people in Australia, and the U.S. total population is right around 335 million. So leading into quick fact number 3, what do these numbers actually mean? So when you take $5 billion in estimated premium in the U.S. and divide it by the population, you get a total of $14.92. So think of that as like average travel insurance premium per person in the United States population. Obviously not a real stat, but it's noteworthy for this reason. In Australia, if you do that same equation at 1.9 billion Australian dollars and divide that by the population, you get $76. So you can see the comparison of just how the Australian market is and how they react to travel insurance in general. So let's get into some more insights here. So for our next section, we're going to talk about how old are insureds. So when we look at the average age of travelers, it's coming in very heavy in the Gen Z and Gen Y or millennial generation. So you look at the two bars for 20 to 29 and 30 to 39. Categorically, those would be Gen Z and millennials. And then once you get to the 40 to 49, you start kind of blending millennials with Gen X just a little bit as you get over the age of 45. But key takeaway here is that 72% of insureds in Australia were between the age of 20 and 49. And that is specific to quarter 3 of 2024. So next, we are going to look at the average price paid on a policy. So when we look at some order statistics that are noteworthy here, the average amount of premium paid per traveler or per insured traveler is 83 Australian dollars. And when you look at the average number of insureds per order, it's coming in at just over 2.4. So when you think about the average number of insureds per order and you multiply that by the average premium per traveler, you get a total average order value of that $190 to $200 range. And I think when you think about an Australian traveler, and once we get into some more insights, this will all make sense, but 83 Australian dollars per insured, I would say, is a pretty affordable amount, especially knowing how long they're traveling for. So, and we'll get into that here in a couple of slides. So next, we're going to look at where in Australia do these insureds live. All right, so this is going to come by no surprise, particularly if you live in Australia, but the eastern side of the continent has the highest concentration of travelers. And when you look at it for the whole country, 84% reside in New South Wales, Queensland, or Victoria. Apologies. So really looking at Sydney and Melbourne and Brisbane with the highest percentage coming out of Sydney. So again, not super surprising. Majority of the population of Australia lives on the eastern side of the continent anyway. So next, we're going to look at where are they traveling? Which countries are they going to? All right, so where are they going? The primary destination for this would be one singular country that they're going to. The primary destination. 81% of them, 81% of travelers were only going to one primary destination, where 19% indicated they were going to multiple countries. And as you can see on the left-hand side here, high concentration of APAC. Again, not super surprising there, just given the distance relative to where they are. So Indonesia coming in at 27% of the total, followed by domestic travel in Australia and Thailand, New Zealand, Vietnam, Japan. So again, a lot of APAC countries in there. Again, not super surprising, and it makes sense for the policy that's being sold. There is an international policy, single trip, but there also is coverage for domestic travel as well. It's offered through some of our partners in Australia. So that's where they're going. And again, this is specific to Q3 of 2024. So essentially the dead of winter in Australia. So I'm going to assume that Indonesia, Thailand, specifically Vietnam, are likely warmer climates. So next, we're going to dive into some final statistics here and conclude episode 3 of Battleface Insights. But first, let's talk a little bit about some trip information. So some relevant stats here. The average length of trip and number of days is coming in at just over 16 days. So if you think back to what I said about the 83 Australian dollars average per premium, again, these are travelers who are younger in age, in that Gen Z millennial demographic, and they're traveling to APAC countries for an average of over 2 weeks. So when you think about traveling for that amount of time, $83 in the grand scheme of things does not seem super significant with all the benefits that come with a travel insurance plan by Battleface. And you can see as the older demographic above 60, between 60 and 69, they are traveling for the longest period of time. Not surprising to me, as these travelers are likely retired or just in an age where they are traveling more. Their average trips are over 22 days. So some interesting stats there. This one, the next one, average days to departure of 22 days. If you're a U.S. Listener, this is probably going to be surprising to you, because in the U.S. market, we usually see average days of departure at over 60 days. In some cases, the average is 90 days. So U.S. travelers are buying their policies way more in advance, likely around the time they're booking the trip. For Australian travelers, the average days is 22. So this appears to be more of like a last minute type of purchase for them before they go on their trip. And again, this stat represents the days in between when they bought the policy and when it becomes effective on their trip start date. So, and the last takeaway here is specific to the battleface direct-to-consumer channel. It is an active channel, but it's not a key focus. We generally look at our direct-to-consumer channel for battleface as a sandbox environment where we can evaluate different tests and be able to provide our partners with some information that may benefit them for their buying journeys and demographic analysis, things like that. But on the battleface side, travel insurance quotes are converting at a rate of 19%. And generally speaking, I would say that this is probably a lower stat. But when you think about it in relation to the time of year in Australia in Q3, which again is dead of winter, pretty much, 19%, not too surprising. I think that is a seasonality insight that will change depending on time of year. I would expect Q4 and Q1 to be a higher quote to buy ratio. But we'll see once those quarters are actually complete. Okay, so just to recap all the information that that we covered. The average age of traveler, Gen Z, millennial, coming in that 20 to 40 year old age traveler, and the average trips they're taking are around 2 to 3 weeks long to nearby APAC countries with an emphasis on Indonesia, likely Bali. The average travelers per policy coming in at 2.4. And again, these are younger travelers, so like traveling in small groups, whether that with friends or couples or with a family. That 2.4 suggests that it's not solo travelers that are taking these trips. The average policy premium paid by insured coming in at 83 Australian dollars, with 81% of those orders or insureds traveling to only one destination. And again, when we look at average order value, just based off the stats we have, looking at about $190 to $200 per order in Australian dollars. And lastly, the average number of days that we just covered in the previous slide, from the time the policy was purchased to when the trip actually starts, coming in at 22 days, which again suggests that travel insurance is a bit of a last minute purchase leading up to their trip. So that's Battleface Insights, episode 3, covering Australia buying behavior. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you again next time for episode 4. You've been listening to Battleface Insights, episode 3, Travel Insurance Buying Behavior in Australia, a review of Q3 2024. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast at youtube.com/battlefaceplan. And for more partner insights in Australia and in other countries, visit battleface.com/partner insights. We will see you next time on episode 4 of Battleface Insights.